Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Honorable Crypto Podcast. This is your host, Dylan Bloom, and today I'm going to be talking about Monero, about a couple more things, so stay tuned for that. Alright, I'm just going to start off this episode by giving a quick shout out to Brave Browser, as that's the browser that I'm using to read this off of. Brave Browser is backed by Basic Attention Token. It is honestly the fastest browser I've ever seen. Go check that out. I'll leave a link in the description for Brave. Please do check that out. So what is the deal with this hard fork? Essentially, Bitmain, which is a company with a lot of ASICs, they found a way to get into Monero's hash rate and mine it effectively with ASICs, so much more effectively than had previously been done. So they found the way to do that, and Monero has always prided itself on being ASIC resistant. So if you don't remember, we talked about 3 different types of mining softwares. There's actually 4, but we don't need to talk about the other one because it's not super popular. So we have CPUs, so computers without graphics processing, GPUs, computers with graphics processing, and ASICs, which were those application-specific integrated circuits. And ASICs are standalone devices that do nothing but just proof of work all day long. They just keep turning, go, and mine proof of work algorithms to gain cryptocurrency. So there are definitely tons and tons of ASICs mining Bitcoin, but I mean, if you could find a way to mine Monero with an ASIC, you can imagine that the fact that there are so few people mining with ASICs on there would really affect the amount that a GPU or a CPU would get paid out. Because, I mean, if you could find a way to effectively use all the hash rate that an ASIC can provide, oof. So what happened with the fork? Well, ASIC resistance has always been preached by Monero. We talked about that. So this is the main reason that they tried to prevent ASICs overtaking the network. So when Bitmain did this and took over the network with ASICs, they decided they needed to quickly upgrade their network to go back to ASIC resistance. So a higher difficulty supports ASICs and a lower difficulty supports GPUs and CPUs. So they wanted to lower that difficulty with their version 12. So a lower difficulty limits the use of ASICs we talked about, but it makes mining on Monero much easier and more profitable than previously. So before the fork that Monero did to upgrade their network, mining Monero and mining Ethereum was equally profitable, and after the hard fork, Monero is currently like twice as profitable as Ethereum. So you can imagine people are going to hop on that, and obviously eventually it won't be twice as profitable as more competition comes onto the blockchain. But so clearly they accomplished what they were trying to do with the fork, and they've rewarded miners that now want to come over to Monero. So let's talk about the fork. There's been a lot of controversy going on. Some people are worried about the privacy of Monero with forks off of it, because how are those transactions on the forks going to be as private as with Monero? There's a lot to worry about with this fork, but we'll just talk about kind of the coins, because I don't want to go into this mess and talk kind of biased about it, So there's 6 of them. One isn't out yet. So we have Monero Classic, Monero Classic, fun, right? Monero Zero, Monero Original, and Monero C that are currently out. Monero V will be the one that comes out at the end of this month. So Monero Classic with a space is a completely different project from Monero Classic. So that's going to be a fun one to deal with. So this Monero Classic is a group of cryptocurrency miners and blockchain developers based out of Singapore. As with many forks, Monero Classic is taking its own approach with Monero. They're actually taking an approach that supports the use of ASICs. They think that the developers' approach to resist ASICs actually promotes centralization and doesn't actually promote decentralization that Monero claims to have. Now, these aren't my own claims. These are specifically their own claims, so don't think I'm commenting on this at all. Monero Classic, with a space, is dedicated to maintaining an ecosystem that supports all miners, no matter what type of equipment they have. They expect to keep about 80% of the hash rate that Monero's old blockchain has. That's a lot compared to what these other ones expect, but time will tell whether or not they're able to do that. So Monero Classic, on the other hand, which is XMC with a space, it would be XCL. So XMC is a hard fork started by someone who goes by the name PZ. He claims to be an early Bitcoin evangelist and a blockchain ecosystem builder. So this Monero Classic is actually pretty similar to Monero Space Classic in that they'll both support ASICs on their blockchain. They also claim that preventing ASICs promotes centralization, and it's the large contributor to the start of a completely centralized ecosystem. PZ ends their webpage by stating they will allow ASIC miners to be given equal opportunities and then let the free market make its own choices. So, pretty strong words there. Monero Zero. Monero Zero, sometimes referred with a actual zero, is a hard fork that claims to be the original Monero. They have some pretty outlandish claims on their website. They say the so-called network upgrades, in quotation marks, that are currently centrally mandated by the Monero project are a Trojan horse designed to compromise the effectiveness of proof of work in the Monero network. Monero Zero is not a fork. It is the original Monero. That's a pretty big claim to make, especially with XMR in the top 12 coins. So I'm not going to judge this. It's pretty strong. Either way, we can all see that this is a pretty strong claim, no matter whether you believe them or whether you think that this is kind of extreme. So I'd be leery in believing what they are trying to sell you, but some people definitely think that they are the real Monero, and they definitely do. So their main claim behind this is that Monero hard forked itself when it went through the upgrade of their network from version 11 to version 12, and they are now the new original Monero running version 11.1. So I'm not a developer, so I can't really go into a lot of the details with that, but I mean, I'll let you have your own conceptions about that. So Monero Original, so XMO, it's called Monero Original. I'm not talking about the actual Monero XMR. Very little is currently known. They don't have a website, but they do have a GitHub. On that GitHub, they have the following written in a README file. Monero means anonymity. Monero means untraceability. Monero means people. We are Monero. We are working to keep the original blockchain running. Join us on our quest. GitHub update coming soon. So that sounds like a wonderful poem that they have written. And the reason I read it like that is because they have it in like one line each per sentence. So it's kind of fun just to look at that like it's a poem. So this is obviously pretty dramatic statements, or just kind of a dramatic way to present the statements, I guess. And they should probably tell us more about what they're doing. But if you're a developer, you can definitely check out their GitHub, inspect what they're working on, make sure that it's a good project. I'm not, so I can't comment much on that, but obviously more will happen within the next month or two. A lot of these forks are pretty new ideas, so there's a lot that still needs to be done on them. So Monero C, also not very much is known. Their website's under development. The only way they've been giving news to cryptocurrency community is through their Twitter account, which currently has about 500 followers. So at the moment I'm writing this, they've tweeted, Monero will be less decentralized after their hard fork, version 12. The purpose of the privacy coin is not to be centralized, and right now they are doing the opposite. More information and news coming soon. So from this we can gather that CXMR, which is Monero C, will be operating on version 11, and there'll also be a privacy coin, but we can assume that with all these. They also claim their main goal is decentralization, and that Monero's dev team is not accomplishing that by doing the network upgrade. So unlike some of the other forks, but like Monero, they're going to promote ASIC resistant. So they're going to try to maintain version 11 and be ASIC resistant. So that's CXMR, Monero C. Now Monero V is the last one we'll talk about here, and then we'll kind of summarize everything. Monero V is a hard fork proposed long before any of these other forks. They will actually be forking at the end of April. I think it's April 30th or so. Monero V is the only of these forks that actually supports their network upgrade to 12, so they're going to be forking off of version 12. Unlike the 1-to-1 forks, which all the other ones are, Monero V is doing a 10-to-1 fork, so If you hold 1 XMR, you'll be getting 10 XMV. Here is what they list on their website under what does Monero V offer and how is Monero V different from Monero. So for what does Monero V offer, they state an advanced privacy coin with extra add-ons, more governance, less spam, and botnet mining. Our dev team works on several key features such as Mimblewimble, protocol integration, sidechain support, spam elimination, and more. So Mimblewimble is hard to say with a straight face. How is Monero V different from Monero? Among other differences, Monero V has a limited supply of coins, while Monero's coin supply is infinite. And Monero V will implement new protocols that will solve the scaling problems facing Monero and other cryptocurrencies, such as Bitcoin. Monero V seems to be the most put together of these, but they've also been planning this for a lot longer than any of the other ones would be, if you ask me. So let's summarize this. If you're wondering which of these is truly the original Monero, I'd still say XMR. I mean, XMR is huge. It's a top 15 coin